16-year-old Abby always cherished her solitude, an oasis in her bustling family life. With her parents and younger brother needing to leave town for a night due to an urgent family business, the grand Victorian house, bathed in moonlight, belonged solely to her. Abby clambered into bed around midnight, her heart buzzing with the thrill of being alone. Hours slipped by, the house settling into the deep stillness of late night. Outside, an owl hooted eerily, the wind occasionally shaking the bare branches against the window pane. The old grandfather clock downstairs struck 4, the booming echo breaking the silence. Abby stirred in her sleep, her dreams tinted with uncertainty. Then came a noise, faint at first, echoing through the silent house. It jolted Abby awake, a soft shuffling sound like footsteps creeping across the old wooden floor. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She sat upright, her eyes straining in the dark. The house, once comforting, seemed to close in on her. The shadows seemed darker, the silence more ominous. She swung her legs over the bed, her bare feet meeting the icy wooden floor. Every creak she made seemed amplified in the quiet. Gathering her courage, she tiptoed to her door, the cold metal knob turning slowly under her fingers. The hallway was a yawning, black void, her own reflection gazing back at her from a moonlit mirror at the far end. The old house groaned around her, each noise echoing through the silence, transforming from comforting night sounds to foreboding murmurs. Abby tiptoed down the stairs, her hand gripping the banister for support. The noise grew louder, a continuous shuffling intermingled with a low, guttural groan. She froze. The sound was coming from the living room. She hesitated at the doorway, her heart hammering so loud she was sure the intruder would hear it. The room was drowned in shadows, only dimly lit by the pallid moonlight streaming through the windows. On the far corner, the silhouette of the large mahogany armoire her mother cherished loomed, the mirror on its door casting a strange reflection. Gulping down her fear, Abby slowly pushed the door open. Her eyes widened in terror as she saw the source of the noise. There, standing before the armoire, was a figure, a strange entity cloaked in darkness. Its form was indistinct, a shifting blur in the dim light. Its movements were jerky, almost puppet-like, and from it emanated those unsettling sounds. She wanted to scream, to run, but fear had glued her feet to the floor. The figure turned, its featureless face pointing towards her. A cold chill ran down Abby's spine. She wanted to shut her eyes, but they were held captive by the sight before her. Suddenly, it began to move, its steps awkward and slow. Each step towards Abby echoed in the silent room, growing louder, more threatening. Abby could hear her blood rushing in her ears, her breath hitching in her throat. She closed her eyes tight, bracing herself. But then there was silence, a silence so deep it roared in her ears. Cautiously, Abby opened her eyes. The room was empty. The moonlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the once terror-filled room. The figure was gone. Relief washed over her. Abby turned to leave, her body shaking uncontrollably, but as she glanced back into the room, her heart stopped. The armoire door was ajar. The mirror on its door, which should have reflected an empty room, showed a different picture. In it, the figure stood right behind her, its formless face inches away from her neck. This time, Abby's scream filled the house, piercing the silent night. The morning sun found Abby curled up in her parents' bed, her eyes wide with terror. When her family returned, they found the house untouched. Nothing was out of place, no signs of forced entry. They dismissed it as a bad dream, the product of an overactive imagination, but Abby knew what she saw was real. Every night she heard those noises, those shuffling footsteps and the low, guttural groan. Every night she lived in fear, the echo of her scream still hanging in the air. For Abby, the house would never again be the sanctuary it once was. It was forever haunted, its shadowy corners filled with lurking terrors and its silence broken by the footsteps of the unseen.